One of the things that came up in the St. John's survey in the changes for better was filling empty storefronts, and changes for worse were different symptoms of economic conditions getting worse, disaster preparedness not being as stable because we don't have easy access to a hospital or downtown. If you rely on public transportation to get to the hospital, it may take you well over an hour. Portland wants to reduce its carbon emissions by so much.
There's got to be a sense of urgency here, and so we're ready. We're ready as soon as we have a partner. So what projects are out there for the City of Portland and for the new City Council and the Mayor to get behind?
One of the things that came up in the what is missing in St. John's question was Frog Ferry.
Why did we start Frog Ferry?
My hope is that more people learn about Frog Ferry.
Frog Ferry would allow us to improve transportation, reduce car use by utilizing the infrastructure that already exists, that is our waterways.
Why don't we have something like that here in Portland?
One of the things I've been really impressed by is how tight-knit the Frog Ferry community is and how passionate they are about getting this done.
Beautiful setting. That makes me move, and I really want it.
Hey, I'm Captain Peter Wilcox.
Like
she said.
My name is Tony Gracia.
Hi, my name is Delina Bradley.
Hi, my name's James Paulson. And
there can be a little bit of joy in everyday life, and I think that being out on the water is an amazing opportunity.
And I have the honor of being the board chair of Frog Ferry.
I live in the Portsmouth neighborhood. This was about 6 minutes for me to get down here.
And I am a native Oregonian. I have lived in Portland for more than 30 years.
And I'm Kim Larson, and I have been working with communities and neighborhoods in Portland to do culture studies. Between November 2023 and April of 2024, the St. John's neighborhood put together a survey to discover what the needs, values, and experiences were in our community.
I have never thought about it that way. We got a lot of work out of the community because they want to do it. They feel like it's an important thing to do.
Yes. And you're welcome to interrupt me. I can still see you. It's just putting me in the recording screen. Yeah, because you mentioned, how do I make this clear that it's a survey, that these are real people talking? So I think I want to share the history of the neighborhood survey and say, the stories that we're sharing in this video are real. They're real people, just like we saw earlier in the video. And people really responded to this style of survey where they were asked open-ended questions. And they shared more than I've seen in any other survey research I've done previously.
Just pushing poor people away seems to me like one of the biggest problems, because that's not a way to help, and that's not a way to solve their problems.
When we asked about changes for better and changes for worse and what's missing, people were providing 6-paragraph essays, piece by piece. It was like reading people's journal entries. And people really put a lot of thought into how our community can be better and the changes that really scared them. In the changes for better, obviously still filling the storefronts and addressing that was really big. Recently, the North Peninsula Review article did a breakdown piece on why do we have so many empty storefronts in St. John specifically. And the reason they gave was population density. We just need more people in St. John's to support these local businesses to keep them alive. And I thought it was really interesting, Frog Ferry really would allow that transportation for connection between where the populations are and these businesses that we want to support in St. John's.
We have great jobs. We have a great central city. And what we have is we have challenges on moving transportation, moving people to those jobs into the city.
That was one thing.
Yeah. Well, and I was just thinking visually that people could see these or comments. This is what people have written rather than this is what the producer wrote.
The text is a screenshot out of the Daylight platform.
Yeah, I love how you were talking about diary entries. It was just kind of the passion of people writing about, their hopes for the community.
Yeah.
Really cool. But that's what I'm saying. It wasn't until the 5th one where I was like, oh, that's what this is. These aren't things that Kim's written.
Yeah, no, I definitely am not writing this down. Since Arbor Lodge did their survey, I recently talked to Kevin, but I'm going to share my screen again so you can watch.
Yeah, I think it never came up in Arbor Lodge just because psychologically St. John's seems so far away, and the max line is right here.
When I'm talking to people about our gym and what we do, we run into a couple of hesitations. One is that some people don't even know where St. John's is, and as far as they're concerned, it's not really on the map. And then number two is some people are familiar with St. John's and they're a little bit reluctant to try to come up here because they feel like it's too far away, too hard to get to, things like that.
Folks who had never heard of the Frog Ferry were trying to think of ways, like, the problem is, how do I get downtown? Oh, we need the max line extended out to St. John's. If that were to happen, that would potentially carve through Arbor Lodge or Kenton or all these other neighborhoods. The max line was something that was discussed in your survey, and it was associated with strong benefits and detractors to having the max line there.
Right.
Some of the strongest tragedy stories that I saw in your survey were associated with tragedies along the max line. It's a tough thing, but I think the Frog Ferry allows us to keep the max where it is. If the ferry just went directly to that area, we wouldn't have to remove housing to get folks more connected.
Right.
The need for connection definitely showed up in the St. John's survey. Yeah, going through the Arbor Lodge neighborhood was really interesting stuff, because I think Kevin's messaging or driver is, how do we build connection? How do we build community? So I think I saw that with the Frog Ferry community folks.
Look beyond today and you look at the underutilization of the real estate along the waterfront and how 5, 10, 20 years from now, that is going to look all different. The number of jobs, the housing, all along there, it's going to be accessed by the water. And if we put a ferry system in place now, that's only going to help that development. And that's new development. And new development that's coming in right now is the responsibility of our city leadership as far as how that development comes together.
Right.
You know, Milwaukee has a great jazz festival, and going down to Oregon City and Willamette Falls, and now that they're hitting some milestones down there and for their Riverwalk.
The Oregon cities of the world and the Vancouvers saying, we want this. And that's why, do a pilot, and then I think it's really going to show how much people really want.
People can hop on and hop off rather than just thinking of navigating through the community via I-5. It's like we're going to be rediscovering river cities in the Portland metropolitan area that a lot of Portlanders have never experienced. Well, and getting to know your neighbors. And it's like, really, these communities were founded along the riverfront, but now just the way our transportation infrastructure is built out, we've been segregated. So people saying, I'm not going up to Vancouver. I'm not going to sit in that traffic. And instead to say, that's part of the Portland metropolitan area. We should be able to hop on board a ferry and be up there in 45 minutes to experience that amazing waterfront. I mean, Vancouver waterfront is so cool, but a lot of Portlanders haven't done it because they don't want to wait an hour and a half in traffic. So with charter reform for the city of Portland, getting a new mayor in, that mayor will be hiring then a city manager and then 12 new commissioners. They're really split up by the 4 districts. And so for Frog Ferry, in terms of districts, really tied to the river are District 2 and District 4. So as those new officials come in, honestly, we've been really working to make sure they're aware of Frog Ferry. We have a great deal of support with the mayoral candidates and with the city council candidates. We need to get them into office, and then they need to set priorities. And obviously, housing, houselessness, crime is going to be a priority here for us. But we feel like we need a partnership with the city. We don't need the city to do a lot, but we need to have that partnership of governance so we can apply for federal funds and even local philanthropic funds to keep us going.
There's a lot of federal money available to building, launching ferry systems. It's 80% federal funds.
So we all pay our federal taxes. It goes into these federal pools of money for infrastructure. And right now, our federal tax dollars are going to the Seattle ferry, the San Francisco ferry. We are subsidizing those things, and the Frog Ferry is this initiative to bring those funds back to Portland, where we have some fund matching.
That means for every dollar we put in, they put in $4. That's the kind of money we need to bring to this region to affect change.
But if the Frog Ferry really runs on a schedule that they can rely on, it would be an awesome solution for people to get up here on time for their workouts.
The work's been done. We're 7.5 years old now. So we're not being asked for feasibility studies. We're not being asked for demand modeling studies. We're not being asked for, hey, is there a boat that can actually do this with a low bridge clearance? We've solved for that. We've gotten the letters of support. So even the wake requirements, the vessel we have is an ultra low wake. So those impediments, those questions that we had 5, 6, 7 years ago, we've addressed. We know how much it's going to cost. We have funding sources. People are like, oh my gosh, Susan, for transportation projects, that's the kind of change you find in your sofa cushions. It's pretty small. And then from an operating perspective as well, it's very small. And we can be up and running in 3 years. And I think the biggest point here is we have the city of Portland has its climate plan. Those targets were for 2010, then 2020. Now they're for 2030, and the city is behind. They're making inroads, but they're behind. That's where the infighting of the politics and who's in charge of which bureau has really hamstrung our community. And then they've all been fighting over the pot of money rather than saying, let's all work together. So that's why with this new form of governance under one city manager and having commissioners representing like districts 2 and 4, when they can come in and say, this is what our neighborhoods want. This is what residents want in our districts, and can advocate for it then with the city manager. And again, the money that is needed is so small. And how is the city going to be able to achieve their climate goals? Right now, we're not on track for it.
In future surveys, we have the question of how we remember St. John's, how we remember your community in 5 to 10 years. It is my hope that people will say, I remember starting Frog Ferry.
Get on board with us so then you can be a part of this change. This is the kind of change that we need in Portland. We need change that's actionable, that is community focused, and that is going to make our city better.
In terms of what residents can do, there are a few things you can do. We're always looking for letters of support. Join us on social media. If you are traveling to a river city and you're experiencing a ferry, send it to us. Let us know that we can go ahead and run that, just so that Portlanders that aren't familiar with ferries can understand and see how river cities around the world have embraced their river systems and have ferries. If you are talking with elected officials, say, hey, I really like this idea and I hope you'll support it. That is very, very meaningful for us.
Subscribe to the newsletter, learn about events that are going on related to the project.
It comes out quarterly and we provide updates that way. We always can use funding.
Telling friends, family, and friends of friends and friends of family so that we can get Frog Ferry to come to fruition and have this beautiful, additional, clean, efficient way of getting around town.
I don't think we asked, how do you want to remember St. John's? And maybe that's something that we should have.
It is incredibly rewarding in really challenging times how Portlanders have come around this project. And it's been so challenging. I knew it was going to take a long time. I knew it was going to be hard. But I think of how many close inner circle friends are because of Frog Ferry.
You know, the old model was, hey, we want to get rid of this blighted neighborhood, right? And replace it with this glamorous new neighborhood. And the displacement, well, that's just a consequence. I think that the new model is you set up the transportation systems into areas that have been underserved by transportation, and you make that part of the model.
I'm betting on us. I'm betting on us as a people. We do need to use our voices. Not okay that this community is not being served. It's not okay that we are so focused on the status quo when the status quo isn't necessarily working. Why are we expecting a different result by doing the same thing over and over again? So I never thought I would be in a role like this, never aspired to be in a role like this. I want my kids to be able to raise families if they so choose, and to be able to have a safe and equitable community for them to live. And so that's what motivates me every day.
It would just be such a great way to have an alternative transportation option and have fewer cars on the road, and also another really great way to see the city in a less stressful and efficient way, both for myself and for people who might be visiting from out of town.
Good job.
Oh, she's the best. That's
So
what I thought. That's what I thought. Well, you primed me, so I thought, okay, if I can string these all together.
So shout out to the people who spoke up in the survey referencing Frog Ferry, because that is not something that, as a survey designer who is looking to understand the community and listen to the needs, it wasn't something that I necessarily would have thought to include in the survey, just because there were so many things that our community needs. And if we're going to scale this survey out to other neighborhoods like Park Rose neighborhood or Cully or Reed or further out, there's no way I would be able to dictate that.
The community and the effort is bigger than any one of us. I'm so excited for this. You've done a ton of work on this, Kim.